Welcome to a place where forgotten scrolls, hidden writings, and ancient voices quietly wait to be heard again. Here we explore the world behind the Bible, uncovering lost books, mysterious texts, and sacred history with curiosity, respect, and deep reverence for faith. This journey is not about changing belief, but about discovering the stories that once surrounded it. What if some of the most important political, military, and spiritual events in Israel's history were once recorded in official royal chronicles? Books so detailed that the Bible itself refers to them, yet so significant that none of them survive today. What if behind the biblical narratives of kings, prophets, wars, reforms, and failures stood vast historical records now completely lost? Today we explore one of the most fascinating and overlooked mysteries of the biblical world, the book of the Chronicles of the Kings, and how these lost royal records may have differed from, expanded upon, or stood in tension with the biblical accounts we read today. Before we begin, it is important to clarify our purpose. This exploration is strictly historical and educational. We are not questioning the authority of Scripture, nor are we elevating lost records above the Bible. Instead, we are seeking to understand the ancient world behind the text, a world where history was recorded in many forms, not all of which were preserved. By understanding these lost chronicles, we gain deeper appreciation for how and why the biblical authors shaped the narratives they preserved. Throughout the Old Testament, particularly in 1 to 2 Kings and 1 to 2 Chronicles, we repeatedly encounter a familiar phrase. Are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel? Or the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah? These references appear more than 30 times. The Bible clearly assumes these books existed, were authoritative, and were accessible to readers at the time. They were not legendary or symbolic texts. They were official state records, likely maintained by royal scribes. These books were not scripture. They were administrative and historical archives, similar to annals kept by other ancient Near Eastern kingdoms. They likely recorded dates of reigns, military campaigns, political alliances, construction projects, economic policies, rebellions, assassinations, prophetic encounters, and even scandals. In other words, they probably told the full story, far more than the Bible chose to preserve. And this is where differences begin to emerge. The biblical authors were not attempting to write exhaustive political history. Their purpose was theological. They selected events that illustrated faithfulness or rebellion toward God. The books of Kings, in particular, evaluate each ruler based on one primary question. Did this king do what was right or evil in the sight of the Lord? Everything else, economics, diplomacy, minor wars, was secondary. The lost chronicles of the kings, however, likely did not share this focus. They would have recorded successes even of wicked kings, and failures even of righteous ones. Consider King Jeroboam I, the first king of the northern kingdom of Israel. In the Bible, Jeroboam is remembered almost exclusively for leading Israel into idolatry. His political achievements, founding a kingdom, organizing administration, resisting Judah, are barely mentioned. But the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel almost certainly recorded these accomplishments in detail. From a political perspective, Jeroboam was successful. From a theological perspective, he was condemned. This difference alone reveals how the same king could be portrayed very differently depending on the source. Another striking example is King Solomon. The Bible highlights his wisdom, temple construction, and eventual spiritual decline. But a royal chronicle would likely have contained detailed records of taxation, forced labor, foreign trade, diplomatic marriages, and internal unrest. Some scholars believe these records may have presented Solomon less as a Golden Age monarch and more as an autocratic ruler whose policies sowed the seeds of Israel's division. If such accounts existed, they would stand in tension with the idealized image found in parts of Scripture. The differences become even more apparent when we compare Kings and Chronicles, two biblical books that already retell the same history differently. Chronicles often omits scandals found in Kings, David's sin with Bathsheba, Solomon's political excesses, and focuses heavily on temple worship and priesthood. This tells us something crucial. Even within Scripture, history is shaped by purpose. The lost Chronicles of the Kings would have offered yet another perspective, one focused on statecraft rather than covenant. Military campaigns are another area where disagreement may have existed. The Bible frequently summarizes wars in only a few verses. A royal chronicle, however, would have detailed troop movements, casualties, sieges, victories, and defeats. It may have recorded battles the Bible does not mention at all, especially losses that did not serve a theological message. This means the biblical narrative may represent a selective theological memory rather than a full military history. There is also the issue of prophets in politics. In the Bible, prophets often confront kings directly, delivering divine judgment. In royal records, these same events may have been framed differently or omitted entirely. A scribe loyal to the throne may not have emphasized prophetic condemnation. This creates the possibility of conflicting portrayals, Scripture highlighting divine warning, while royal chronicles emphasize political stability or rebellion suppression. Some scholars suggest that the Chronicles of the Kings may have even preserved alternate chronologies, different reign lengths, co-regencies, or disputed successions. Ancient record-keeping was not standardized, and discrepancies between Israelite and Judean chronologies already exist in Scripture. A lost archive may have preserved versions that did not align perfectly with the biblical timeline, forcing later biblical editors to harmonize or select traditions carefully. So why were these books not preserved? The answer likely lies in exile and destruction. When Assyria destroyed the northern kingdom, and Babylon later destroyed Judah, royal archives were prime targets. Temples were burned, palaces looted, libraries destroyed. The books considered essential for identity and worship, the law, the prophets, the Psalms, were preserved and recopied. Administrative records were not. Once the monarchy ended, the Chronicles of the Kings lost their practical purpose. Yet their disappearance does not weaken the Bible. Instead, it highlights something profound. Scripture was never meant to be a complete political archive. It was meant to communicate meaning, covenant, and divine purpose. The biblical authors were transparent about their sources, openly acknowledging other records even when they chose not to include them. Understanding this helps us read the Bible more responsibly. It reminds us that Scripture is selective by design. It teaches theology through history, not history through theology. The lost Chronicles of the Kings remind us that behind every biblical narrative lies a broader historical reality, complex, human, and sometimes messy. When we encounter differences, expansions, or gaps, we are not seeing flaws. We are seeing ancient storytelling at work. We are seeing how faith communities preserve what mattered most to them. And we are reminded that God's story was lived by real people, in real kingdoms, facing real political challenges. The books of the Chronicles of the Kings may be lost forever, but their echoes remain every time the Bible points to them. They stand as silent witnesses to a fuller history, one that Scripture chose not to preserve in full, but was never afraid to acknowledge. As we continue exploring these forgotten texts, our goal remains the same: not to replace Scripture, but to understand the world that produced it. Because when we understand that world, the Bible becomes not smaller, but greater. This archive grows by curiosity, and your voice matters. If there is a lost book, ancient scroll, or forgotten mystery you want uncovered next, write it in the comments now. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and join this journey beyond the familiar pages, where hidden texts await and ancient voices are ready to speak again.